Kakadosh Boker Tov. We're continuing with halachot now about, we're going to say, taking up to the Torah a Katan, a minor. Now obviously if we're talking about a boy that's already bar mitzvah, there's nothing what to talk about because a bar mitzvah boy is a gadol. He's already above the age of bar mitzvah, so he could get any aliyah that he wants. But what about a minor? So it says over here, obviously we're talking about a minor that he knows to who he's blessing, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're not talking about mamash, a very small little child, he doesn't understand anything, but we're talking about a minor that understands what's going on. Here, there is going to be a huge machloket in the Acharonim. Ashkenazim are much more stricter than Sfaradim, that they would only call him up to the Torah for the maftir. They will not call him up whatsoever throughout the entire 7 aliyot. However, though, right, obviously also here we're talking about that there's going to be 10 men which are above bar mitzvah, right, which are in the Bet HaKnesset, because remember, in order to read the Torah, you need 10 men. So therefore, the child here is not helping us. However, though, let's say we had 10 men, and let's say there was another child there, and we wanted to give him an aliyah, or sometimes it happens that children want to come up and they want to read the haftarah. So again, obviously for the maftir, it's much lighter. As Maran Mefurash says, Katan oleli minyan shiva. However, though here, when we're talking about a child, right, Maran says, Hakol oli minyan shiva. Everybody's going to be oleli minyan shiva, even it's going to be, whether it's going to be a Katan, sheyodea lemi shemevarchin, right? Even if we're going to be a Katan, which we know who they're making a bracha to. So here it brings down in the halacha brura the different opinions in the Acharonim. Some people say that you should only call up maximum of one Katan and not more than one Katan, which means even if it's going to be that we're going to call up a Katan, a minor, and we're going to count him for the Minyan Shiva for the 7 aliyot, that would only be one child, but don't call up more than one child. There is another minhag, which that they would always try to do a mosif. The Arizal HaKadosh says, you should only call him up for Aliyat Shevi'i, right? And some people had a minhag, right, only after the 7 aliyot, which means as a mosif, but not as part of the 7 aliyot. Ashkenazim, we already mentioned, only as maftir. He wants to say that the minhag of Sfaradim was to be lenient like Maran, which was to call up during the 7 aliyot. So you could technically come and call a minor for the 7 aliyot. Right, I do know that obviously there's different minhagim, and therefore obviously it's better to be machmir, because the same halachot that applies to a person which is above bar mitzvah applies to under bar mitzvah, which means like this. Just like if you remember, we mentioned in Chot Kriyat Torah that the one that gets the aliyah, he should read his aliyah. If he cannot read his aliyah, he's reading it quietly with the shliach tzibur. Nowadays, the majority of the people, they don't read it themselves because they didn't prepare beforehand. So therefore, we have the shliach tzibur, the Bal Koreh, that he is the one that's reading it, and therefore the one that's getting the aliyah should read along with the Bal Koreh. So here, the same halacha would apply to a minor. We in Morocco, we were lenient, right? That even if a person was an Ama'aretz or he doesn't know how to read along with the Bal Koreh, we would still give him the aliyah. And the reason why is because we're going to be somech on Rabbi Shalom Mesas, that he says that the psak is that we're going like the Zohar, that it's Shomea Keoneh, which means that as long as he's paying attention to the Aliyah, so therefore he's being Yotzei Chovah with your reading, with the Bal Koreh's reading of the parasha. But the same halacha would apply with a minor, so therefore you should be careful. Now what about in 3 aliyot? So some people, they want to say, when do we say that you could count a minor? Only for one of the 7 aliyot that you have on Shabbat. But what about during the weekday? So then technically maybe not. But again, the halacha brura brings down that if you do hold me karadin, that you're allowed to call up a minor for one of the 7 aliyot, so then you're also allowed to call up a minor for one of the 3 aliyot. And therefore he says, what happens by a bar mitzvah boy? And this happens a lot. What happens by a bar mitzvah boy? That his bar mitzvah is on Friday. And now what happens is that he wants to go up to the Torah. Now, when is he going to go up to the Torah? On Shabbat, okay, it's Shabbat, but let's say you want to do a breakfast, or they want to do whether it's putting on the tefillin. So again, usually we should try to put on tefillin earlier, but let's say he's only going to put on tefillin by whether it's going to be Bo Bayom or maybe the day before. So now 1 second, he wants to do it. Now when's he going to do it? If he's going to do it on Thursday, he's still not bar mitzvah. So therefore, again, here we have the leniency that you're allowed to come and you're allowed to call him up to the Torah on the day before the bar mitzvah, or if you really needed to do it, you would have to do it on the Monday. Let's say the bar mitzvah was on Wednesday, the Bobayom. So you would be able to do it on Monday as well, and then you're calling him up to Torah, even though right now he is a minor, and you're allowed to do that because we're being somech on the shitot that what happens is that a minor is allowed to go up to the Torah even for the 3 aliyot. Now, if he was going to be a Kohen, so you could call him up even for the Kohen, or if he's a Levi, you could call him up for the Levi. And again, if we're already going to be lenient that you could call him up, whether it's going to be Minyan Shiv'ah or Minyan of Shlosha, you're also allowed to be lenient to call him up for Minyan Chamisha or Shisha, which means on Yom Tov or on Kippur, you would also be allowed to come and to call him up to the Torah. Obviously, again, it depends on every single minhag. Certain Bate Knesiot will do it, certain won't. It all depends on the circumstances, but at least here we're getting the halacha, or the strict letter of the law of the halacha, that you're allowed to come and you're allowed to call him up. To do with, though, I'll finish, to do with a Kohen Katan, and we're not talking about that we need to call him up. But let's say you have a Katan, right, that he's a Kohen, and there's no other Kohen in the synagogue. So here we have a famous machloket in Acharonim. Is there a mitzvah to say doraita v'kidashto for a Kohen Katan? Which means, can I just come and just, as if to say, not pay attention to this Katan, because, he's a Kohen. Yeah, but maybe there's no v'kidashto. Kidashto means there's a mitzvah to say doraita to sanctify the Kohen. So we come, we give the Kohen the first, right? We're going to respect the Kohen, to give him some honor. So here in this case, though, if he's a Katan, maybe we're not obligated to. So because of this machloket, usually we don't pay attention to the Katan. We do not give him any of the things until he's bar mitzvah. However, though there is a machloket, so therefore we should also be careful about this as well.